Welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the Alaska Senate race that's coming up in the 2026 midterm elections and an indication that Democrats might have struck gold in the Alaska Senate race. Now, on your screen right now, you might be wondering, okay, we're talking about the Senate race and we're talking about Alaska. Why is this article on screen about Tom Begich stepping into the race for Alaska governor? Well, the reason why is because this announcement from Tom Begich that he is running for governor indicates that it seems as if Mary Peltola is now considering a run for Senate or a run for nothing. Now, Mary Peltola has been someone who has been under very much close, media supervision. They are really interested in what she is doing next because she is the last Democrat to win across the state, and she only lost re-election in 2024 on a margin in which Donald Trump was winning on the national ticket in Alaska by 14 points. She lost her race by about 3. The Alaska Senate race coming up in 2026 will be under dramatically different circumstances than the 2024 election. And it looks as if anyone was able to take on Dan Sullivan in the race, that it might be Mary Peltola. Now, an announcement from Tom Begich doesn't necessarily mean that Peltola won't be running for governor. But the big reason why we think this tells us something is because Tom Begich gave a statement to the Alaska public media that, quote, if she being Mary Peltola, chooses to run for either United States House or United States Senate, I will absolutely run for governor. If she doesn't choose to do that, but chooses to run for governor, then I'll be supporting her. He told the Alaska public media that if Peltola runs for governor, he won't run, and he will endorse her from the get-go. So why did he launch a campaign? Well, it seems as if Tom Begich, who's the uncle of the U.S. representative from Alaska, a Republican, Tom Begich is a Democrat, big political family in the state of Alaska, seems to have had a conversation or something to that degree with Mary Peltola where he has made the decision that she will not be running for governor and instead he should. And she seems to be looking like she's going to run for something in the near future because she's maintaining her personality online. She's maintaining her social presence. I mean, she has been someone who has been a huge trailblazer for Democrats in Alaska and doesn't seem like she's going to go quietly into the night. Now, Chuck Schumer has been lobbying Mary Peltola to run for Senate. He did it first with Sherrod Brown in Ohio. He went to him and said, you should run in 2026. We will back you. You will get all your seniority back if you are elected. We need you. The Senate is so important. And I imagine he is doing the same for Peltola in the Alaska Senate race because he knows that in Ohio, Sherrod Brown is the best person to run for Senate. And in the state of Alaska, Mary Peltola is the best person to run for Senate as well. And she's someone that has a track record. Democrats don't really have that many candidates who can run in this state. Looking at the 2026 race, on the Democratic side, it doesn't seem like anybody big is going to run. And that's because there's no real bench here for Democrats in the state. The last time Democrats won a statewide position here was in 2008, and that was with Mark Begich. Yes, the same last name and same family as all the Begich names that we've been throwing around. Nick Begich, who's the U.S. representative, Tom Begich, who's running for governor as a Democrat. Mark Begich was the Democratic senator who was elected in 2008. Lost re-election in 2014 to now the incumbent Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan won re-election in 2020 and now in 2026 is facing likely the most competitive Senate race he has seen since he has gotten into elected office. And so thinking about Peltola and how she fits into all of this, well, taking her track record and Dan Sullivan's as well, she stands to be in a good position in the Alaska Senate race. Looking at the elections in 2022, we saw that Mary Peltola won the election in the House of Representatives seat by about 10 points against Sarah Palin. And in the first round, received 48.8% of the vote. A massive sum. Voters really liked her. Looking at the corresponding races for governor, Mike Dunleavy won his election with a 50.3% share of the vote, and Lisa Murkowski won her Senate race. But I actually think we don't talk much about the Senate race with Murkowski, and I think it shows a good sign for Peltola. Now, Lisa Murkowski is someone who has long been seen as a bipartisan senator from the state of Alaska. Does overwhelmingly vote with the Republican Party, but after all, she is a Republican. She ran for Senate in 2022, ran for re-election against Kelly Tshibaka, who was the former commissioner of Alaska's Department of Administration and had the endorsement of Donald Trump. Now, Pat Chesbro was another candidate, a Democrat who ran, but because of ranked choice voting, there was the ability for those votes to change and move around. Pat Chesbro, Democrat, saw that a lot of her votes went directly to Lisa Murkowski, enough that it put Murkowski over the top, who only had a 2,000 vote advantage in this early round. The moderate Republican vote share plus Democratic vote share was enough to counteract a Trump-endorsed Republican in the state of Alaska, on the same ballot that Mary Peltola won. And thinking about the last presidential election, the state of Alaska voted for Donald Trump by 14 points, but in 2024, voted for Nick Begich in the first round with just 48.4% of the vote, and in the final round by about 2.5 points. Not a massive margin by any metric. And thinking about the national environment of 2024 versus 2026, chances are if 2024's election, under similar circumstances, had been held in 2026, just changing that national spin or that national shift, Mary Peltola would still be in Congress. So while she's filed to run in 2026 in the state of Alaska, chances are that she's not going to run for House again, and that this election was one that was said and done. Because this is a race to start out and build out your name ID and the way that voters like you, but Nick Begich just getting elected is going to be difficult to take down in 2026. And it doesn't look like Democrats are really targeting him to the same degree that they would be targeting a much more important Senate race that really could determine balance of power in the 2026 midterm elections. The Senate races that Democrats are fighting for in 2026 right now are pretty contained. Democrats need 4 seats on this map, besides the ones they already have, in order to win Senate control, and the math here isn't great. Democrats obviously are targeting states like Maine that they have won in every election in the 21st century on the presidential ballot. They're targeting states like North Carolina, which in 2026, this being the first blue wave year, expected blue wave year, should I say, the Democrats have a coinciding Senate race. The focus for Democrats has been Maine and North Carolina. But after Chuck Schumer got Sherrod Brown in the race, it has expanded to the state of Ohio. But like I said, Democrats need 4 seats. They're looking at alternatives. Maybe Tellerico or Allred or O'Rourke or Castro in Texas. Maybe it could be one of the candidates, Sage, whoever in, Turek in the state of Iowa. These are very real possibilities, but not super likely. Democrats know and Republicans know that the GOP is the favorite in both of those states, and arguably is the favorite in the state of Ohio. The 2 states right now the Democrats see as the easiest to pick up, North Carolina first, then Maine, which feels weird but makes sense in context. But again, getting to that magic number of 4 seats for Democrats, again, relies on the fact that they need to win Michigan and Georgia. Don't even get me started on a pathway to a Democratic majority if they lose either of those 2 states, because it really isn't that possible. But if Mary Peltola does decide to run for Senate, which it looks like this news from Tom Begich indicates that at least she's not running for governor, chances are she's going to take on one level of congressional elections. Whether House or Senate will be interesting to see and really important, arguably, for the Democratic Party in 2026. Because if she runs for House, immediately that race will be competitive, but right now, it's likely Republican. If she runs for Senate, immediately this race will be competitive, but right now, it's solid Republican. The data suggests that Peltola would be in a close race. Alaska Survey Research 2 years ago said that she would have beaten Dan Sullivan. The data now that we're seeing, especially the most recent Dem internal from Data for Progress, says Dan Sullivan wins by about a point. I think he starts out with about a 3 to 4 point advantage, but nothing that can't be overcome. But it doesn't mean that Peltola would be the favorite. In the governor's race, she would be the clear favorite. Looking at what's happening in Alaska in 2026, there's a lot of reasons to believe that she could be in a strong position, because the data says, in the hypothetical numbers, that Peltola starts out with an immediate advantage over everybody in the race, and by the final round would be in a tremendously strong position. What we're finding is that she wins head-to-head against all the other Republicans, does a great job in this, scenario, and that really puts her in a strong position. Really, really puts her in a strong position to say, if you run for governor in the state of Alaska, it practically is hers, because it doesn't even look like there's any pathway where Peltola loses this race. There were some hypotheticals. Okay, maybe Nick Begich decides to run in this race on the Republican side for governor. Obviously, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Lisa Murkowski has floated, jokingly with the idea because she can still remain in the Senate and run for governor. Doesn't look like she's going to do that. But still, all of these conversations, all of these different hypotheticals, the point is that if Peltola enters into the race, she starts out as the favorite in Alaska. In the governor's race, in the Senate race, not so much. But it's not unwinnable. And that's the big deal for Democrats in Alaska. That's the big deal and why this is so noteworthy, because she is in a position where she could realistically win the Senate race in Alaska, and Democrats actually would have a pathway, a conceivable one, to a majority in 2026, which seemed impossible, 2 months ago. This news coming out of states like Ohio and new announcements in states like Iowa and in states like Alaska make all the difference for the National Democratic Party, who has been looking to this election with dismay towards the Senate races. Now, we don't know what Peltola's next steps are going to be. She's been very careful not to talk to the press, especially about hypotheticals, about what she'll run for or what she won't run for. She signed with a law firm and is maintaining an online presence and maintaining, to the extent that a former congressperson would, probably more than that, because it looks like she does have ambitions beyond it. But I don't believe she's done with politics. And just so what she decides to run for will be her prerogative and will be, again, at her discretion. We will see what happens and who makes a decision, whatever it might be. But right now, the tides are turning. And it looks like she might heavily be considering running for Senate in the state of Alaska. And as Tom Begich, who said very painstakingly, very clearly, if she decides to run for governor, I'm supporting her. But if she runs for U.S. House or Senate, then I'm running for governor. And now he's running for governor, just doing a little bit of, reverse thinking here. Chances are she's running for U.S. House or U.S. Senate. And if I was her, it's the same boundaries, it's the same lines, and she just lost an election to Nick Begich, so why not try Dan Sullivan? And given the stakes of the race, given the national environment, given that she would only have to be up every 6 years rather than every 2, Senate race is a much easier answer for her, given this state's composition and given her electoral history. So keep your eyes peeled. Alaska will be a race to watch, and it could be the seat that gives Democrats the majority in 2026. It's not likely, and it's not something that the Democrats should count on. But it certainly begs the question. If Tony Begich is deciding that he's going to... Tom Begich, I don't know why I said Tony. Tom Begich is deciding that he's running for governor, chances are that she's running for Senate or something else. And so I think that's something the Democrats should keep in mind, that we should see potentially a pending announcement, or, this is the other end of it, she withdraws from politics entirely, which I really, really, really don't see her doing. So, we'll watch. We'll keep a close eye on the state of Alaska and what comes out of the state so far, because right now, it's not the worst news for the Democratic Party, because Tom Begich has a non-zero chance of winning the governorship in this state with more name ID and more time to campaign. But looking at the race for Senate is a very interesting one, with one notable absence that might come to fill in that seat sometime soon for the Democratic ticket. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the top left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.